More time passes, and with the older that I get, I really begin to understand how I spent a lot of my time, a lot of my life growing up masking the man that I am, masking how I felt, masking the things that I like or don't like. And I don't think I ever allowed myself to really understand or even know that I was masking these parts of myself. You grow up in the society where everybody wants to fit in, everybody wants to have these types of friends and have this social element. And while I had a lot of parts and a lot of great people in my life who I was being my true self with, I reflect back and I can remember so many moments, whether it was at school, in the workplace, or otherwise, where I was masking. And because I didn't realize that I was doing it actively, I would leave these social settings, go home, and feel drained, not knowing why. But when you spend all this energy trying to be somebody that you're not, or holding back parts of yourself, holding back your excitement about topics that really intrigue you, or because you're engaging in things that you don't want to, but you feel like you have to fit in, to be accepted, to be a part of the tribe, you don't understand how much energy it takes away from you. And I'm at this point in my life right now where I began to understand how much that was happening in my life. And not just in my life, I see how it's a common theme with the friends and family and just people that I talk to in my life, how many of us have spent our lives masking without realizing it. And the key part about this is that not only are we not many times aware that we're masking, it's also the fact that we're not truly able to accept ourselves. We don't have that level of self-awareness or self-love to know who we are and to love ourselves for who we are at the core. I think when I grew up, I had this mindset that I wanted to be the guy that everyone likes, the one who is a people pleaser and does all these things. But it always led me down a path where I would avoid things that I wanted to do or say, and how that made me deviate from my core, true, authentic self. And it's only now that I can really look at myself and look at the people that I have in my life and understand how liberating and freeing it is to be yourself without trying to justify or explain in such large detail. You see, in the past, I used to say no to somebody and I would hate saying no because I wanted to people please and have everyone like me. That when I did say no or when I did something different, I would provide these essays and these long answers for why that's the case. And I began to see how it's not required. I don't have to go and ramble on and feel like I have to give these answers to people that maybe are not deserving of them, or just in general, the fact that not even the people who are close to you don't need to hear this entire breakdown of how you're so sorry about this and you wish you could have done this for them, because you know who you are, you know where you come from, you know what's in your heart, you know what your intentions are. And because you're aligned with those, and because you accept yourself as a person, it doesn't eat at you. In the past, you may have not gone somewhere and felt FOMO, but now you can spend that night by yourself, reading a book, watching a movie, doing whatever you want to do, and not feel like you're losing these parts of yourself and that these people are just gonna leave your life forever. And if they do, then it's very telling of itself. But just for you to be able to sit in your own company and not feel like you have to put up this facade of who people think you should be, but rather you give yourself the grace to be who you are and who you want to become. At any point in our lives, we have this ability to become better. And if we have parts of ourselves, these parts that are so deep within our shadow that we don't allow us to understand and see these parts because we're so embarrassed or filled with anxiety or fear. But once you take that time and you spend time in your own company and you allow yourself to be in a safe environment where you can bring up those past traumas, those past fears, those past insecurities, you begin to see how they're not all consuming. You begin to see how you can love yourself for things that you never thought you could. You can begin to understand and connect parts of your life for why this happened or why you did this at this point, things that you never would beforehand. And I found for myself that if I just fight the resistance of seeking the next dopamine hit, of watching the next video, or going out and doing this or doing that, but rather give myself moments, intentional moments, where I say, Naman, today we're gonna address these pain points that we have, that we've been avoiding. And I allow myself to build an environment where I can ease myself into it. And talking to myself helps, but ultimately for me, writing, physically writing, less so on a computer, but physically writing to myself, especially in third person, it's allowed me to really see how I grew up with this mindset that I couldn't own 100% of myself. And because I never felt like that, I had moments perhaps, but I was never truly sustainably, consistently in points in my life where I really loved myself. I owned my decisions. I knew who I was. And because I had this misalignment and I would do things or feel like I had to do things to fit in or be accepted or to be like the other people, I never had this time to unpack who I really am. And the more you do this, the more you distract yourself, the more you seek that stimulation and avoid the parts of yourself which really want you to open up and address what's going on within. You don't get the gift of true gratitude, of true glory of knowing yourself, glory that you can go, do, be, say, and become anything and everything that you want without feeling guilt and also without feeling this doubt. You see, the older you get, you make more critical life decisions. What kind of job do you want to have? What kind of relationships do you want to be in? What kind of lifestyle do you want? But if you haven't taken that time, the time to look at the good and the bad, to reflect in silence by yourself, to allow those deeper parts of yourself to come out, then you never truly give yourself the ability to make a decision and stick with it. You always doubt yourself. Is this the right thing? Is that the right thing? And you begin to get all these overwhelming thoughts of what you should do. But when you take more moments and you allow yourself to ask, why am I feeling like this? All these parts will come out. All the parts where you were masking in your life, where you will begin to realize that I was doing this not because I truly wanted this, but because I cared about what people thought about me. I got this job, I wanted to make this much money because I thought it would give me this level of status in society. I was with these groups of friends, or I pursued these types of relationships because it allowed me to fill this void within myself. And then you really begin to understand who you are at your core. You begin to understand why you did things, but ultimately you get the blessing of being able to use your present to decide what you want to do, how you want to feel, And for me, I grew up with a good amount of anxiety. I think a lot of this was incremental. When I went to university and then getting a full-time job and then trying to climb the corporate ladder, I began to feel these parts of myself, and I never really knew what it was. But I can look back in hindsight and understand that I was chasing all these things, thinking that if I had more of this, if I had more money, if I had a higher position at work, if I had more skills and more things to offer to the world, if I was more productive, that I would be more loved, that I would have more worth in the world. But I've seen, after amassing a good amount of the things that I wanted to, many of the goals that I had when I was a little boy, after getting those and seeing how empty I felt after, it really opened up my eyes, and it made me go down this journey of truly understanding who I am and why I am in this position in my life. Why do I feel like I have to always go through these phases of burning myself out by doing all these things for other people and accomplishing all these great feats in my life just so I can show the world, hey, Naman, you're worthy. And as I've taken off this mask and I've allowed myself to just sit in my company, and as difficult as it has been to allow myself to stop trying to be so perfect, not just in the eyes of other people, but especially in my own eyes. I feel like I've grown up as someone who's very creative, who likes doing things and making things, but I've seen my own self get paralyzed because I'm trying to be so perfect. I'm trying to make these ideas and these projects, and I want them to be over the top because I feel like that's what I need in order to get this validation from the world. But as I've taken off those pieces of myself, where ultimately, even in the past, if I have done some good projects or if I have accomplished some things, you feel good and then boom, you're back to yourself and it's back to reality. And now I can look at what I'm doing and how I'm spending my time, and I can understand which parts are truly for me and are going to bring me deep joy, and which parts I thought I had to do to get the acceptance and the love of those around me and in society in general. I've given myself the gift of slowing down my life. I've always been in this rush to go and get the next thing and learn the next skill and to just always more and more. And I see how it's this vicious loop where you go and you get this motivation or this excitement to do more in your life, and then you go on that path, you build off the momentum, but then you burn yourself out and you come crashing down, but you try to deny the feelings that you have. You put the mask back on. You tell yourself, no, you just, this is just like a little random thing, it's not a big deal. But then the more this happens, it compounds. And you end up in this place where you just don't know what to do. You're not just burnt out, but you're so disconnected from yourself. And I really want to emphasize the importance of seeing that as a sign that you have to do that inner work. You have to allow yourself to meet yourself where you are, to know what's going on. And I'm not saying this has to happen all at once, but gradually give yourself the ability to sit down and see, why do you have this mindset? Why do you have this belief system? And then learn from people that you truly are inspired by, people that have studied this in humans, whether it's philosophy, psychology, religion, spirituality, whatever the case might be. And from those teachings, you can apply it back to yourself. And what I see happen for myself is that I consume content. I see people that give me actually great advice, and I feel like I have to get there right away. And so once again, I get myself into this loop of I gotta be hyper productive. I gotta hit the gym. I gotta hit the sauna. I gotta get the best diet. I gotta have the cleanest office. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. And boom, you end up back in that cycle. And so by me seeing this in my own self, I just I just could never fully unpack why I kept going through this cycle. Even though I'm learning and I'm reading books and I'm doing all these things, why is it that I still have this thing clinging on? And that's where the whole thing of the mask comes in. That I had to do these things for myself. And it's not to say that you shouldn't be productive or you shouldn't aim for these great things in life, but you have to know your why. You have to understand why you're doing it. Is it for yourself? Is it for others? What is your purpose? What's really driving you? And if it's external, then it's gonna lead you down that path once again. It's gonna burn you out. It's gonna make you feel empty. But if you've taken that time to really sit with yourself, accept, understand, and love yourself, then you can do the things that you genuinely care about, and you will do them in ways that you've never done before. You will excel. You will become that person. You will hit the gym consistently. You will create content consistently. You will learn that skill consistently, and you won't feel this clash between what you think you should be doing and what you really want to do. And from that, you can always pivot because you're doing it for yourself, because you're not putting on this show for the world to see, but because you are doing it for yourself, you won't have that doubt in you any longer. So if you do want to switch things up, if you do want to do something different, then you give yourself that agency to do so. But if you're still trying to please other people, if you're still trying to make yourself seem like you're this superhuman and make the whole world see that this person did all these great things and they'll praise me and I'll get power and status and money and yada, 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 then I promise you, you are going to fall back down. And we see this in Hollywood. We see this with many people who are famous, that they put on the facade that they're happy. They make it seem like they have everything together, but inside they're miserable. And even though I'm not by any means a celebrity, I've seen this in my life too many times that it's just, I guess it just warms my heart to be at this stage in my life where I can understand that there's no need to mask. I don't need all these great things that the world has to offer, which I thought I needed because society conditioned me to believe. But at the same time, I can also have all the great things that maybe I thought I couldn't have, where I can look at my own limiting beliefs and see that I thought maybe I couldn't have this body or this level of intelligence or these loving relationships or this type of organization or whatever the case might be. You begin to really elevate yourself to levels that you never have before. But it starts with identifying that there's something that's not right, and that the anxiety and depression that you're feeling isn't just because of some chemical imbalances. And while that there is merit to these things, you have to understand that it's the tough work, it's climbing that mountain. It's by allowing yourself to do things that you haven't done before, think in ways that you have never thought before, that will open up your eyes, that will change your perspective on yourself and the world as a whole. And by doing that, you will begin to see this mask falling off. And while you still might put it back on, and you might go to some events and feel like you have to be a certain way, over time, you will begin to understand that that's not what you want. You work too hard in your life. You know yourself too well to go back down that path. And these things stick. They won't happen over one day or 1 week or 1 month, but I promise you, you stick with it and it will happen. Even myself, I was making progress in many domains in my life, but I just wanted faster progress. And that's where I saw that one of my main pain points was that I always wanted things to just happen right away when I wanted them to happen. But I've had to allow myself to step back, to be patient, and to see that there's so much beauty in the process. There's beauty in sticking with it, beauty in knowing that you are on the path that you want to be. And whether that thing happens for you in 1 month or 6 months or 3 years, it doesn't matter, because you are aligned with yourself as a person, as a soul. And because of that, there's no race, there's no comparison. It's truly a you versus you journey. And you know where you came from. You know what your starting point was. You know how you were raised. You know how your childhood was. And so you don't feel the need to do all these things. And while I'm not perfect, well, I'm very, very far from it. It just makes me happy to know that I am on this path now. And it just feels so good to take the mask off, to not feel like I have to look, talk, or whatever a certain way, that I can be myself and the man that I've always been. And whether that's the one who just needs alone time, or the one that's super excited and crazy when he's with the people that he loves, that I can be myself unapologetically and fully authentically. And that by doing this and by allowing myself to do it, that I will shape myself into the person that I want to be. And I want to say the same will happen for you. So please, understand yourself, accept yourself, and you will see how greatly you can transform yourself by taking off the mask and really owning who you are 100%. Thank you for listening.